Ranking: the Wizarding World's most evil inventions. The Wizarding World is usually remembered for the inventions that make magic feel impossible to resist. But the same magical creativity that produced wonder also produced some of the most disturbing objects, spells, potions, and systems in the entire series. That is where the Wizarding World becomes darker than it first looks. Because magic is not evil by itself. A spell can heal bones. A potion can restore someone from petrification. A charm can protect a home. And a magical object can preserve history, help travel, or save a life. But when invention is guided by control, obsession, cruelty, or fear of death, magic becomes something else entirely. It becomes a way to turn good into bad. And that is what this ranking is about. Love potions. Love potions deserve a place on this ranking because the Wizarding World often treats them like embarrassing teenage mischief, even though their actual function is much darker. They do not create love. They create obsession. And it is made clear in Half-Blood Prince during Harry's 6th-year potions lesson with Horace Slughorn. Slughorn shows the class Amortentia, the most powerful love potion in the world. It has a mother-of-pearl sheen, and its steam rises in spirals. It also smells different to each person depending on what attracts them. Hermione recognizes freshly mown grass, new parchment, and something connected to Ron. Harry smells treacle tart, broomstick handle, and the flowery scent he later connects to Ginny Weasley. On the surface, that scene is almost charming. It plays like a classroom moment about attraction and hidden feelings. But Slughorn's warning is the real point. Amortentia does not manufacture genuine love. It causes a powerful infatuation or obsession. The series shows this directly through Ron Weasley. Romilda Vane sends Harry a box of chocolate cauldrons laced with love potion. Harry does not eat them, but Ron does. And because the chocolates have been sitting around for months, the potion has become even stronger. Ron immediately becomes fixated on Romilda, even though he barely knows her. He talks about her as if he has discovered the love of his life. The scene is played with comedy at first, especially because Ron is not the intended target. But the situation is actually serious enough that Harry has to take him to Slughorn for help. That visit leads directly to another near-death incident when Ron drinks poisoned mead intended for Dumbledore. So one romantic prank with a love potion pushes Ron into a chain of danger that ends with him convulsing on the floor and surviving only because Harry remembers the Bezoar. That is the smaller example. The darker example is Merope Gaunt and Tom Riddle Sr. Merope was the daughter of Marvolo Gaunt and a descendant of Salazar Slytherin, but she lived in poverty, abuse, and isolation. She became obsessed with Tom Riddle Sr., a wealthy muggle from Little Hangleton. Dumbledore later believes that Merope likely used a love potion, though he also allows for the possibility of the Imperious Curse. Either way, Tom Riddle Sr. did not freely choose that relationship. He abandoned his family, ran away with Merope, and only returned to his old life after the enchantment stopped. Merope became pregnant during that controlled relationship. Her son was Tom Marvolo Riddle, who later became Lord Voldemort. That does not mean a love potion magically created evil in him. Voldemort's choices are still his own. But it does mean one of the central villains of the series is born from a relationship where consent was likely removed by magic. That makes love potions far more disturbing than the Wizarding World usually admits. Even Weasley's Wizard Wheezes sells love potions as part of its joke shop business. Fred and George are brilliant inventors, and many of their products are funny, clever, or harmless in the right context. But the love potion line shows how normalized this kind of magic is. In another setting, A potion that can make someone obsess over another person would be treated as a major violation. But in the wizarding world, it can be packaged, sold, and treated like a school scandal waiting to happen. It is not the most violent invention on this list, but they belong here because they reveal how casually wizarding society can laugh at control when it is disguised as romance. The Hand of Glory. The Hand of Glory is not one of the loudest dark objects in the wizarding world. When Harry first sees it in Borgin and Burke's in Chamber of Secrets, it looks like a shriveled hand sitting among other ugly things in a shop full of dangerous objects. But the way Borgin describes it gives away the real purpose. Insert a candle, and it gives light only to the holder. That sounds small until you think about what it is designed to do. The Hand of Glory is not made for healing, education, travel, communication, or defense. It is made for secrecy. More specifically, it is made for a person who wants to see while everyone else remains blind. Borgin even calls it the best friend of thieves and plunderers when Draco Malfoy shows interest in it. Borgin and Burke's is not Diagon Alley's cheerful, magical marketplace. It is a nocturne alley, surrounded by shops and objects connected to dark magic, curses, and old pure-blood money. Harry ends up there by accident when he mispronounces Diagon Alley using flu powder and lands in Borgin and Burke's instead. That mistake lets him secretly watch Lucius and Draco Malfoy interact with Mr. Borgin. Lucius is there to sell objects that could incriminate him during ministry raids. Draco, meanwhile, is fascinated by what the shop offers. That is where the hand first enters the story. Draco asks his father to buy it. Lucius refuses, partly because he does not want Draco looking like a common thief, but the interest is still important. Draco is still young at this point, preparing for his second year at Hogwarts, and the object already fits his imagination of power. Moving unseen, holding an advantage, and having something others cannot match. Years later, that interest becomes practical. In Half-Blood Prince, Draco is no longer just a spoiled student admiring a creepy object in a shop. He has been given a mission by Voldemort: find a way to kill Albus Dumbledore. His father has fallen from favor after the Department of Mysteries disaster, and Draco is now trapped inside a task that is probably meant to punish the Malfoy family as much as target Dumbledore. The Hand of Glory becomes one piece of that larger plan. During the infiltration of Hogwarts, Draco uses Peruvian instant darkness powder, a product from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes that creates a darkness resistant to ordinary light-making spells. That detail is important because it connects two very different kinds of invention. Fred and George create the powder as joke shop magic, clever and disruptive, but not originally built for murder. Draco combines it with a dark object from Borgin and Burke's so that he and the Death Eaters can move while others are blinded. The Hand of Glory gives him the advantage inside that darkness. The hand does not need to kill anyone directly to be evil. Its purpose is tactical unfairness. One person sees, everyone else does not. In the right situation, that difference is enough to let attackers pass through corridors, confuse defenders, and turn a school into a trap. The object also has a corpse-like symbolism that makes it feel worse. It is not shaped like a lantern or enchanted torch. It is a hand, a dead, withered, human-looking thing repurposed into a tool. Even before you know how it will be used, the design tells you something about the kind of magic it belongs to. It takes the image of a body part and turns it into equipment for thieves. And that fits the Malfoy storyline perfectly. Draco's sixth-year plan depends on hidden movement. The vanishing cabinet brings Death Eaters into the school. The darkness powder disorients the people inside. And the Hand of Glory lets its holder function inside the confusion. None of these objects alone is the killing curse, but together they create the conditions for Dumbledore's death and the invasion of Hogwarts. The cursed opal necklace. The opal necklace is introduced before it ever touches a Hogwarts student, and the warning attached to it is already enough to make it infamous. Harry first sees it in Borgin and Burke's in Chamber of Secrets, the same shop where the Hand of Glory appears. The necklace is displayed with a card saying it has killed 19 Muggles. That number is important because it means this is not an unknown artifact with a vague, dark reputation. It has a documented death history before Draco Malfoy ever turns it into part of his plan. And it is still sitting in a shop. That tells you a lot about the darker side of the wizarding world's object trade. Borgin and Burke's is not just selling strange antiques. It is selling items with known violent effects. The opal necklace is not locked away in the Department of Mysteries or destroyed by the Ministry. It is available in Nocturne Alley, close enough that a school-aged Draco can see it, remember it, and later use it. By Half-Blood Prince, Draco is under pressure from Voldemort to kill Albus Dumbledore. He cannot openly attack Dumbledore, so he tries methods that use distance, objects, and other people as delivery systems. The necklace becomes one of those methods. It is not just a cursed object. It is an assassination tool that allows the person behind it to stay several steps away from the victim. That chain begins with Madame Rosmerta. Rosmerta, the owner of the 3 broomsticks in Hogsmeade, is placed under the Imperious Curse. This detail makes the necklace even more disturbing because the object does not travel by accident. It moves through controlled people. Rosmerta passes the package to Katie Bell, intending for Katie to bring it into Hogwarts and eventually deliver it to Dumbledore. Katie is not the target. She is the carrier, but that is where the plan becomes cruel in a very specific way. Katie Bell is a Gryffindor student and a chaser on the House Quidditch team. She is not involved in Draco's mission, Dumbledore's investigation, or Voldemort's strategy. She is simply on a Hogsmeade trip with her friend Leanne when the cursed package enters her life. The necklace is wrapped carefully, but there is a tiny tear in the paper. Katie touches it through that opening, and the curse hits her immediately. The scene is one of the more frightening moments in Half-Blood Prince because it happens in public, in daylight, during what should be a normal student weekend. Katie rises into the air, screams, and is left badly injured. Harry, Ron, and Hermione witness the aftermath, and Leanne is terrified because she has just seen her friend nearly killed by an object neither of them understood. Katie survives, but only because she receives serious magical treatment. She is taken to St. Mungo's Hospital and does not return to school for months. That part matters because it separates the necklace from the kind of curses that can be fixed instantly in the hospital wing. This is not a minor hex. This is a lethal dark object that nearly removes a student from the story permanently. The necklace also shows how fragile Hogwarts security becomes when the threat is not a person walking through the front gate. A cursed object can be wrapped. It can be passed through a controlled adult. It can be handed to a student. It can move from Hogsmeade toward the castle without anyone understanding the full chain until after someone is already hurt. Draco does not need to overpower Dumbledore. He only needs one object to reach the right hands. And the worst part is that the plan almost works on the wrong person. The necklace was meant for Dumbledore, but Katie pays the price. That is what makes this invention especially evil. It does not care who touches it. It has no loyalty, no judgment, no understanding of guilt or innocence. The curse simply acts. Polyjuice Potion. Polyjuice Potion is one of the few inventions on this list that can be used for good and still feel deeply wrong the moment you think about what it actually does. It lets a witch or wizard wear another person's body. The potion appears early in the series, during Chamber of Secrets, when Hermione decides to brew it so she, Harry, and Ron can question Draco Malfoy about the heir of Slytherin. The instructions come from Mosta Potente Potions, a book kept in the restricted section of the Hogwarts library. This is not a simple classroom recipe. It is advanced, risky magic, and Hermione needs a teacher's signed note to access the book. The brewing process also shows how serious the potion is. It takes about a month to make and requires ingredients like lacewing flies, leeches, fluxweed picked at the full moon, knotgrass, powdered bicorn horn, and shredded boomslang skin. But the most disturbing ingredient is the final one, a piece of the person being impersonated. Usually that means hair. Harry and Ron use hairs taken from Crabbe and Goyle and successfully enter the Slytherin common room looking like them. For a short time, they can walk through Hogwarts as two other students. Hermione's attempt fails because she accidentally uses cat hair from Millicent Bulstrode's robes, leaving her partially transformed and stuck in the hospital wing. That mistake is funny on the surface, but it proves the potion is not cosmetic. It changes the body with frightening precision. If the ingredient is wrong, the transformation goes wrong with it. The darkest use comes in Goblet of Fire. Barty Crouch Jr. does not use Polyjuice Potion for a quick infiltration. He builds an entire school year around it. After escaping Azkaban and later breaking free from his father's control, he helps capture the real Alastor Mad-Eye Moody. Moody is not killed. He is kept alive inside his own magical trunk because Crouch needs him as a supply source. He needs Moody's hair to keep renewing the disguise. That is what makes this use so disturbing. Crouch is not just pretending to be Moody. He is harvesting Moody's identity every hour. For almost the entire 1994 to 1995 school year, Hogwarts believes Mad-Eye Moody is teaching defense against the dark arts. Students sit in front of him. Professors speak with him. And Dumbledore trusts him enough to let him remain near Harry. Meanwhile, the real Moody is imprisoned, and a Death Eater is wearing his face, copying his mannerisms, drinking from his hip flask, and manipulating Harry through the Triwizard Tournament. Polyjuice Potion makes that possible. It lets Crouch hide in the safest possible disguise, the face of someone people already trust. That is why the potion is more dangerous than a normal mask or glamour charm. A mask can slip. A voice can betray you. But Polyjuice gives the imposter the physical evidence of the person they stole. If the performance is good enough, everyone else does the rest by believing what they see. Deathly Hallows shows another side of the same problem during the Ministry infiltration. Harry, Ron, and Hermione use Polyjuice to become Albert Runcorn, Reg Cattermole, and Mafalda Hopkirk. Their goal is justified because they are trying to retrieve a Horcrux, but the scene still shows how easily the potion can break the boundaries of identity. The Blood Quill. The Blood Quill is one of the smallest objects in this ranking, but it is also one of the easiest to understand. It was made to hurt someone slowly. Dolores Umbridge uses it in Order of the Phoenix during Harry's 5th year at Hogwarts, when she arrives as the Ministry's defense against the dark arts professor. At that point, Harry has already witnessed Voldemort return to the Little Hangleton graveyard. Cedric Diggory has already been murdered. Barty Crouch Jr. has already confessed before being silenced by the Dementor's kiss. But Cornelius Fudge and the Ministry refuse to accept the truth, and Umbridge is sent to Hogwarts to control the narrative. Harry's first major punishment with the quill comes after he insists in class that Voldemort is back. Umbridge does not simply give him lines. She gives him a black quill and tells him to write, I must not tell lies. There is no ink bottle on the desk, because the quill does not need one. As Harry writes, the words appear on the parchment, but they also cut themselves into the back of his hand. The sentence is not just written, it is carved. That is what makes the object so personally cruel. A normal punishment separates the writing from the body. The blood quill fuses them together. The student is forced to create the words that injure him. When the wound heals, the same sentence remains marked into the skin, ready to be opened again during the next detention. Umbridge makes Harry return for multiple nights. The blood quill is not a single burst of violence. It is controlled, scheduled, and quiet. It happens in an office decorated with pink, lace decorative plates and pictures of kittens. There is no battlefield, no duel, no shouted curse. Just a teacher sitting across from a 15-year-old student while a magical object slices a government-approved lie into his hand. The phrase itself makes the punishment worse. Harry is being punished specifically for telling the truth. He saw Voldemort return. He watched Cedric die. He escaped the graveyard and reported what happened. Umbridge's quill is designed to make him physically repeat the Ministry's version of reality until his own skin carries the denial. Harry hides the wound at first, which fits the psychology of the punishment. Umbridge relies on isolation. She does not need to curse him in front of the whole class. She turns detention into a private ritual, trusting that Harry's pride, anger, and distrust of authority will keep him silent. When others eventually see the damage, the mark has already become part of him. Lee Jordan is also punished with the blood quill, which proves this was not a one-time decision made in anger. Umbridge uses it as a disciplinary tool. She hides behind titles, decrees, paperwork, and ministry language. During the same year, she becomes Hogwarts High Inquisitor, gains power over teachers, inspects lessons, bans student groups, and eventually becomes headmistress. The blood quill belongs to that system perfectly because it makes abuse look like discipline. That is why it ranks above Polyjuice Potion. Polyjuice can be used for resistance, infiltration, or disguise, depending on the user. But the blood quill has no innocent purpose in the story. Its function is the harm. It exists to make writing painful and to leave a scar where a student tried to tell the truth. The Imperious Curse. Barty Crouch, Sr. is one of the best examples of why the Imperious Curse belongs this high. He was not a weak wizard. He was a powerful ministry official, former head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and one of the harshest anti-Death Eater figures from the First Wizarding War. Yet, even someone like him becomes both a user and a victim of the same invention. The Imperious Curse is one of the 3 unforgivable curses, alongside the Cruciatus Curse and the Killing Curse. Its incantation is Imperio, and using it on another person is enough to earn a life sentence in Azkaban. That legal status matters because the wizarding world clearly understands what the curse does. It is a spell that takes control of another person's will. The victim remains alive. They can walk, speak, smile, obey instructions, and appear normal. It does not destroy the body. It borrows it. Harry experiences the curse directly in Goblet of Fire when Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Mad-Eye Moody, demonstrates the unforgivable curses to 4th-year students. When he places Harry under the Imperious Curse, Harry feels a floating, peaceful sensation. The spell does not feel like chains at first. It feels like relief. The command to jump onto the desk enters his mind, as if obedience would be easier than resistance. Harry resists it, but that makes him unusual, because most people do not. During the First Wizarding War, the curse became one of Voldemort's most useful tools because it created confusion after his fall. Many accused Death Eaters claimed they had only served Voldemort because they were under the Imperious Curse. Lucius Malfoy is one of the most important examples of someone who avoided Azkaban after Voldemort's first defeat by convincing people he had been bewitched. Whether everyone believed him or simply found it politically convenient, the result was the same. The curse made guilt harder to prove. It harms the victim and protects the criminal. The Crouch family shows the curse at its most twisted. After Barty Crouch Jr. is sentenced to Azkaban for his role in torturing Frank and Alice Longbottom, his mother helps smuggle him out by switching places with him using Polyjuice Potion. Crouch Sr. brings his son home, but he does not free him in any real sense. He keeps Barty Jr. hidden under an invisibility cloak and controls him with the Imperious Curse for years, with Winky the house elf acting as caretaker. That means one of the Ministry's most severe lawmen privately uses an unforgivable curse inside his own house. Then the control reverses. Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew eventually overpower Crouch Sr., and Barty Crouch Jr. breaks free. Later, Crouch Jr. places his own father under the Imperious Curse. The man who controlled his son becomes the controlled body himself. Crouch Sr. is forced to continue functioning at the Ministry and around the Triwizard Tournament until the curse begins to fail. When he struggles through the Forbidden Forest trying to warn Dumbledore, he is confused, damaged, and fighting for fragments of his own will. Crouch Jr. eventually murders him and transfigures the body into a bone. The Imperious Curse also drives Draco Malfoy's sixth-year assassination attempts. Madame Rosmerta, owner of the Three Broomsticks, is placed under the curse and used as a middle link in Draco's plan. Through Rosmerta, the cursed opal necklace is passed to Katie Bell, and the poisoned mead meant for Dumbledore reaches Professor Slughorn. Rosmerta is not acting from loyalty to Voldemort. She is being used as a delivery system. The Imperious Curse can turn one victim into a weapon that harms other victims. That is what makes the Imperious Curse so evil. It does not need to kill the victim to erase them. It lets their body keep moving while their choice is pushed out of the way. The Cruciatus Curse. Neville Longbottom's reaction in Goblet of Fire explains the Cruciatus Curse better than any textbook definition. In the 1994 to 1995 school year, Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Alastor Moody, demonstrated the three unforgivable curses in front of fourth-year students. He starts with the Imperious Curse, then the Killing Curse, and then Crucio. The victim is a spider, not a person, but the effect is still obvious. The spider curls, jerks, twists, and appears to suffer under pain it cannot escape. His parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were Aurors during the First Wizarding War. After Voldemort's first fall on October 31st, 1981, a group of Death Eaters tried to find out where their master had gone. Bellatrix Lestrange, Rodolphus Lestrange, Rabiston Lestrange, and Barty Crouch Jr. tortured Frank and Alice with the Cruciatus Curse. They did not kill them, but they broke them mentally until they were permanently damaged and had to live in St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. That is what makes Crucio different from a spell used in battle. Its purpose is not defense, it is pain. The incantation is Crucio, from the idea of torture, and the spell causes extreme suffering without needing knives, chains, fire, or visible wounds. A person can be left screaming, convulsing, and begging, while the damage is not always something a healer can simply close afterward. The Longbottoms prove that the worst injury is not always physical. When Harry visits St. Mungo's in Order of the Phoenix, Frank and Alice are living in the Janus Thicky ward, the permanent spell damage ward. They are alive, but they do not recognize Neville the way parents should recognize their son. Alice gives Neville a Drubal's best blowing gum wrapper, and Neville quietly keeps it. Neville did not grow up with dead parents. He grew up with parents who survived, but could not return to him. Bellatrix also explains something crucial about the spell after Sirius Black's death. Harry chases her through the Department of Mysteries and tries to use Crucio on her. The curse hurts her, but not enough. Bellatrix tells him that righteous anger will not make it work properly. The caster has to mean it. They have to want to cause pain. That intent requirement makes every successful use of Crucio more revealing. When Voldemort uses it, there is no surprise. Pain is one of the ways he controls followers and enemies. When Bellatrix uses it, it fits her devotion to suffering and domination. But the curse becomes even more disturbing when Hogwarts itself is pulled into it during the 1997 to 1998 school year. Under Amicus and Electo Caro, students are punished through the Cruciatus curse, and Neville later explains that students were expected to practice it on classmates who earned detention. The Caros did not only torture students, they made students participate in torture. Harry later uses Crucio successfully on Amicus Caro after Caro spits in Professor McGonagall's face. That moment is complicated because it shows Harry crossing a line he could not cross against Bellatrix earlier. He means it this time, so the spell works. It does not need a political excuse or a complicated object. It only needs a wand, a victim, and a caster willing to enjoy pain enough for the magic to obey. The Time Turner. Hermione Granger receives a Time Turner for something that sounds almost harmless, taking too many classes. That is what makes the object so strange from the beginning. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione's third-year timetable is impossible without time manipulation. She is taking subjects like ancient runes, arithmancy, care of magical creatures, divination, and Muggle studies, while still continuing core classes like charms, potions, transfiguration, herbology, and defense against the dark arts. Instead of telling a 13-year-old student to choose a normal schedule, Hogwarts and the Ministry allow her to use one of the most dangerous magical objects in existence. The Time Turner itself is small. It is worn around the neck, shaped like a tiny hourglass, and each turn sends the user back by a set amount of time. In Hermione's case, it is used carefully. Professor McGonagall arranges it through the Ministry, and Hermione is trusted not to misuse it. She uses it to attend overlapping lessons, then hides the truth from almost everyone around her. But the risk is obvious long before the final act. Hermione becomes exhausted, secretive, and stretched beyond what a student should handle. She appears in classes she should not be able to reach, disappears from one place and shows up in another, and eventually drops divination after clashing with Professor Trelawney. The Time Turner lets her do more than a normal person can do, but it does not remove the cost. Her body and mind still have to live through the hours. The most important use happens near the end of Prisoner of Azkaban. After Buckbeak is sentenced to death and Sirius Black is captured, Dumbledore quietly gives Harry and Hermione the opening they need. He does not directly say, "Use the Time Turner." Instead, he tells them that more than one innocent life can be saved, and that 3 turns should do it. Harry and Hermione travel back 3 hours. They save Buckbeak first, removing him before the executioner can kill him. Then, they use Buckbeak to rescue Sirius from the tower before he can be handed back to the Dementors. The sequence is one of the cleverest uses of time travel in the series because it does not rewrite history in a chaotic way. It reveals that Harry and Hermione were always part of what happened. Harry believes his father saved him by the lake, only to later realize that he was the one who cast the Patronus. Hermione repeatedly warns Harry that they must not be seen. She knows stories of witches and wizards who killed their past or future selves by mistake. The danger is not just physical, it is psychological. Seeing yourself where you should not be can break judgment, cause panic, or create actions that damage the timeline. The Time Turner works only because Harry and Hermione obey the limits with extreme discipline. That is why it ranks this high. The Time Turner is not evil in Hermione's hands, but the invention itself is too powerful to feel safe. It gives a person access to time, and time is not like a locked door or a hidden passage. If it is abused, the consequences do not stay in one room. One wrong intervention can affect deaths, births, choices, trials, wars, and entire relationships. The Ministry understands that danger, which is why Time Turners are controlled. They are kept under official authority, and by order of the Phoenix, a collection of them is stored in the Department of Mysteries. During the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, the Time Turners are destroyed, with time itself behaving strangely as they fall and reverse in a loop. That scene is brief, but it reinforces how unstable the magic is. These are not ordinary enchanted objects. They are artifacts tied to one of the most dangerous branches of magic the department studies. Later, Wizarding World material makes the danger even clearer. Cursed Child explores time turners that can create larger timeline changes, showing versions of reality where Cedric Diggory's fate, Voldemort's victory, and entire lives are altered. It does not need cruelty to become dangerous. It only needs confidence. The Dementor's Kiss as a state weapon. Most dark inventions in the wizarding world are used by criminals, but the Dementor's Kiss is different because the government accepted it. That fact alone pushes it near the top of this ranking. The kiss is not a spell, potion, or cursed object. It is a practice built around one of the most terrifying creatures in the entire series, the Dementor. These creatures feed on happiness, hope, and positive emotion. Wherever they gather, people feel cold, miserable, and exhausted. Flowers die, joy disappears, and traumatic memories become impossible to ignore. But the Dementor's kiss goes much further. When a Dementor performs the kiss, it locks its mouth onto the victim and removes their soul. The victim cannot think, love, dream, remember, hope, or recover. The body remains, but the person does not. That is why multiple characters describe fate as worse than death. Death at least allows the story of a life to end naturally. The kiss erases the person while leaving the shell behind. For much of modern magical history, Dementors guard Azkaban. The prison is already infamous because prisoners are forced to live surrounded by creatures that constantly feed on their happiness. Many inmates lose their sanity long before they finish serving their sentences. Some stop speaking altogether, others become emotionally hollow. Yet even that was apparently not enough. The Dementor's kiss existed as an additional punishment. In other words, the Ministry was willing to authorize soul destruction. Prisoner of Azkaban gives the first major example. At that point, Sirius Black is believed to be a mass murderer. The Ministry wants him captured quickly, and many officials openly support the idea of allowing the Dementors to perform the kiss. The problem is that Sirius is innocent. Peter Pettigrew is the real traitor. Near the lake, Dementors swarm Sirius and Harry. Harry later realizes that if he had not produced the stag Patronus, both of them would have been lost. The terrifying part is not just that the Dementors attacked. It is that many authorities would have accepted the outcome. The next example is even darker. At the end of Goblet of Fire, Barty Crouch Jr. is exposed. Under Veritaserum, he explains everything. He reveals how he escaped Azkaban, how he impersonated Alastor Moody for an entire school year, how he manipulated the Triwizard Tournament, and how Harry was delivered to Voldemort in the graveyard. Then Cornelius Fudge arrives, and a Dementor performs the kiss. Barty Crouch Jr. is not kissed after a trial. He is kissed almost immediately, before his testimony can become politically dangerous. Once his soul is gone, he can never testify again. The one witness capable of proving Voldemort has returned is permanently silenced. That is why the Dementor's kiss functions as more than punishment. It becomes a tool of power. Horcruxes. And now we are at number 1, Horcruxes. Horcruxes take the number 1 spot because they are the only invention on this ranking where murder is not a side effect, but it is part of the construction. A Horcrux is an object that contains a concealed fragment of a person's soul. The purpose is immortality. If the body is destroyed, the soul fragment anchors the creator to life, preventing true death. But the method is what makes it the darkest magical invention in the wizarding world. A soul is not supposed to be cut apart. That means a Horcrux is not simply a dark container. It is a crime scene preserved as magic. Tom Riddle learns about Horcruxes while he is still a student at Hogwarts. The most important moment happens with Professor Horace Slughorn, when Riddle asks about the possibility of making more than one. Slughorn is already disturbed by the question, but Riddle's interest is specific. The number matters too. Riddle wants to split his soul into 7 parts because 7 is considered the most powerfully magical number. That detail shows how calculated his evil is. He is not only trying to survive, he is trying to turn his own soul into a symbolic structure. Immortality becomes a project, and human lives become the materials used to complete it. Voldemort's Horcruxes are also not random objects. The diary connects to his identity as Tom Riddle and to his years at Hogwarts. It was created after the murder of Myrtle Warren in 1943, when the Chamber of Secrets was first opened. Decades later, the diary nearly drains Ginny Weasley's life in the 1992 to 1993 school year, using her trust, loneliness, and fear to restore the memory of 16-year-old Riddle. So the diary is not just a storage object. It is active, manipulative, and capable of almost bringing its creator back through a child. Marvolo Gaunt's ring ties Voldemort to his maternal bloodline and the Gaunt family's obsession with Slytherin descent. The ring also contains the Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows, which makes it even more dangerous. Dumbledore damages his own hand when he tries to use or claim the ring, and the curse placed on it eventually contributes to the plan around his death. The locket belonged to Salazar Slytherin. The cup belonged to Helga Hufflepuff. The diadem belonged to Rowena Ravenclaw. These objects show Voldemort's arrogance. He does not hide his soul pieces in ordinary stones or unknown trinkets. He chooses relics tied to Hogwarts founders because he believes his soul deserves historical importance. He turns magical heritage into hiding places for murder. The locket's effect during the Horcrux hunt is especially revealing. It does not just sit silently around the neck. It worsens fear, jealousy, exhaustion, and resentment. Ron Weasley is hit hardest by it, and when the locket opens, it attacks him through visions of Harry and Hermione, targeting insecurities he already carries. That proves a Horcrux can corrupt the living even while simply being carried. The cup is hidden inside Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts, protected by one of Voldemort's most loyal followers and surrounded by goblin security. The diadem is hidden inside the Room of Requirement, buried among generations of abandoned objects. Nagini is different again because she is alive. By making his snake a Horcrux, Voldemort turns part of his soul into something mobile, dangerous, and capable of killing for him. Then there is Harry. When Voldemort attacks Godric's Hollow on October 31st, 1981, the killing curse rebounds. A fragment of Voldemort's damaged soul attaches itself to Harry unintentionally. That accident makes Harry a living Horcrux, carrying a piece of the murderer who killed his parents. The connection explains the Parseltongue, the visions, the scar pain, and the mental link that becomes more dangerous as Voldemort regains power. That is what makes Horcruxes worse than every other invention here. The Horcrux begins by damaging the soul deliberately, then hides that damage inside the world. And in Voldemort's hands, it turns immortality into a collection of victims, relics, curses, memories, and living containers. Every Horcrux is proof that someone died so he could continue. That is what makes the wizarding world's darkest inventions so disturbing. They become a target, a disguise, a puppet, a body, a witness to silence, or a soul to break apart. That is where magical invention becomes horrifying. Magic can heal, protect, travel, preserve memories, and save lives. But in the wrong hands, that same creativity becomes a weapon with rules, ingredients, instructions, and repeatable results. The darkest inventions are not always the ones that look the most dramatic. Sometimes they are the ones that make cruelty easier to perform, while easier to hide product numbers so Mary can work on it right away tomorrow, and easier to justify. If you enjoyed this ranking of the wizarding world's darkest inventions, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more Harry Potter lore, and comment below. Which magical invention do you think was the most evil?